I'd like to take a moment to share with you what I thought was a good conversation with a set of new clients. It's my hope that what I shared with them is a help to you the way it was to them. She's 29, he's 28. They have no children, have been dating for 2 years, and have been living together for the last 6 months. They both came to me in their own words and said because they felt their relationship needed some order. He started the conversation. I said, "Sir, what do you mean by order?" He said, "Well, it feels like we are all over the place. If I'm being honest with you, not only just all over the place, but I'm thinking that if I solicited the assistance and the counseling of another man, that perhaps she would listen to me." She interrupted and said, "Doc, this is the problem. All he does is want me to shut up and just listen to him. But if he positioned himself to be somebody that is easy to listen to, then I would listen to him." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And then she proceeded to talk about how he is impossible to communicate with. He is difficult to converse with. He is really on this tip of wanting to lead her and lead them as a couple. And she's not into that right now. Her exact words, I said, "What do you mean by right now?" She said, "Well, I'm open, to order in a relationship, but he's not giving me anything to lead." Then he jumped in and they proceeded to argue and go back and forth. I know for maybe 8 or 9 minutes, and I let them. It was chaos, if I'm being honest with you. Argued for most of the conversation, a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, both of them, a lot of cursing at each other, cursing one another out. It got so bad to the point where I muted both of their microphones. And I asked them an honest question. I said, "Have you guys been physically violent with one another or physically abusive? Because it's clear that you're verbally abusive." They both said, "No, we've never taken it that far." But it was just incredible conversation, incredibly toxic and poisonous, to say the least. I had heard enough. It was just so many glaring red flags. And I said to them, I don't even like using the term red flag. But after about 20, 25 minutes in the conversation, I had heard enough. And it was a lot of back and forth. And I had an idea of what needed to be shared. But just out of an abundance of caution, I said to them, I said, "Both of you, tell me your top 2 problems with the other person." He said, "Well, Doc, she's lazy. She barely cleans. She barely cooks. She does work a job and she works hard on her job, works about 50 hours a week. But when it comes to the house and it comes to me, she's just lazy." He said, "The other thing that I would say is that she always complains. She wants to be soft. She walks around the house talking about wanting to live a soft life, but she's the loudest woman I've ever been around." The lady was just sitting there, mumbling things under her breath, arms folded, very attitudinal. And he noted that. He said, "The way she's looking right now is the way she looks every time we talk." And he said, "It's even more embarrassing because you're on the call and she's still acting this way." So then she interjected and said, "No, I'm not doing this towards Doc. I'm doing this because I'm trying to give you a chance to talk. And I don't think I'm loud nor rude. I just think you're impossible to talk to." And I said to her, I said, "Well, I only wanted 2 things. He's giving me about 5. I said, "So, ma'am, can you just give me 2 of your major problems with him?" She said, "Well, Doc, I've already said one of them. He's impossible to communicate with. He's always trying to overtalk me. He's always trying to just be loud and talk down at me as if I'm his daughter or his dog, and I'm neither," her words. And she said, "He's just impossible to communicate with. And because of that, I don't feel like I can live a soft life. And I do want to live a soft life. I feel like I should be," her words, "in my soft era at 29. I have a good job. But he is impossible to be comfortable around, and I don't feel soft around him at all." I said, "Well, ma'am, that's already 2 or 3 things." I said, "But what's your official second thing?" She said, "Well, if I had to give you an official one, it's that he wants to be the leader." I said, "What do you mean by that?" She said, "Well, he wants to be the leader so bad. All he talks about is just being the leader of this, and I want to lead us, and I'm going to lead us, and you're going to listen to me. But he doesn't do the little things." I said, "What are the little things?" She said, "Like take care of the home. He talks about me not cooking, but I have to ask him to take out the trash. I have to ask him to repair lights when something goes out in our apartment. I have to ask him to fix something if something goes down. I have to ask him to make sure, my car has gas in it. I have to ask him to check my tire pressure instead of him just checking it, regularly on a weekly basis so I don't have to look into those things." I said, "Okay." I said, "I want to just, you guys came to me. They stated at the beginning of the conversation that they came to me because they knew I would be honest. And I had to remind them, I said, are you all sure you want me to be honest with you both? And they said, yeah. I said, well, I'm just going to be honest. Y'all are typical. I said, you guys are typical and you're made for one another. And if I'm being frank with you, y'all are perfect for one another. I said, you're giving Jody and Yvette vibes. Do you know what that is? They were like, Jody and Yvette. I said, have you seen the movie Baby Boy? They both said, yeah. I said, that's what y'all are giving. A young couple, toxic and poisonous towards one another, screaming and yelling and cursing at each other, high highs, low lows. It's the classic toxic relationship. And if neither one of you want to heal or grow, I suggest you stay with one another because you're typical. And I said, it is people like you all that keep me in business because you're so toxic and you're so broken that neither one of you realize that neither one of you deserve the treatment that you're asking for. Could have heard a pin drop. I said, let me give you 3 things to consider. I said, but both of you have made comments about being, soft life and being the leader. I said, let me tell you something about kings and princesses. When we talk about kings and when we talk about princesses, a king and a princess will always carry themselves as such. They always do. So a king doesn't have to have anybody say, treat me like a king. Why? He said, because he carries himself like a king. I said, and ma'am, a princess never has to ask for a soft life. Why? She didn't say anything. I said, you don't have to answer. I said, because she carries herself soft and it's greater than the lip gloss she puts on her lip. It's greater than how pretty she is. That ain't the soft life. That's looking pretty. That ain't the soft life. I said, ma'am, sir, neither one of you deserve the treatment that you want. I said, and this is what I know about people who live royal lives. I'm privileged to have clients from literally around the world. I have clients who come from what they call extended royalty. So they're like 4th, 5th in generational succession. So in their eyes, it doesn't really count, but they have a family tree of folks that are live royalty who have king and prince in their names. And this is, having talked to many of them in the past, clients in the past about their lives and the things they've grown up with, there are 3 things that have always stood out that I think are going to help both of you as it relates to this king and princess talk. I said, and it's just not for you. It's for this culture. Because frankly, I'm tired of women saying they want the soft life and they want princess treatment, but they don't act like princesses. And I'm tired of men saying they want to be leaders and they want to be first and they don't act like kings. I said, so here are 3 things I want you to think about that I know about real living kings, queens, princesses. I said, number 1, what I've learned about people who come from those lifestyles is that they are prepared, meaning they grow up taught how to be kings, taught how to be princesses, queens. They're taught these things. And not only are they taught these things, they are teachable. I said, your existence isn't enough. Just because you're a man doesn't mean you get to be the leader when you don't act like one. I said, and just because you're a woman doesn't mean you get to get the soft life just because you're pretty and your lips look good. None of that matters. At the end of the day, even if you're born in it, you have to be led by being teachable, which means both of you, you've admitted you had some challenging childhoods that could account for a lot of the reasons why at your age you're struggling from a toxic perspective of getting along. And I get that. I said, but you need to be teachable. And it's a good thing that you've reached out to someone like me to help you. I said, but both of you need to be led. You need to be taught how to be a king. You need to be taught how to be a princess. And right now, both of you just want to be that because of who you are. And that ain't enough. So that leads me to number 2. And so what I know about real live kings, queens, and princesses is that they are held accountable. They accept correction before they get promoted. They're not called queens or a prince without being able to prove that they can handle correction. I said, and that's the problem with this trophy generation. This trophy generation absolutely hates accountability. Yes, women hate accountability. I said, but men hate accountability too. It's a 2-way street. Unfortunately, you got a lot of men beating their chests that want to be the man and want to be the king and want to be the head, but they can't be corrected. And you have a lot of women who want the soft life, who want the princess treatment, but get an attitude like you did, man, when you folded your arms and wouldn't answer my question because they don't want to be held accountable. So you got a whole generation of broken men and women who are claiming to want to be kings and princesses, but hate accountability, but hate correction. that hate instruction. I said, ma'am, sir, y'all not going to be able to become none of this stuff that y'all want to be if you don't get out of this mentality that you're just because you are who you are, you're a winner. I said, and this brings me back to that trophy generation concept. We are living in a time where everybody thinks that just because you show up, you are awarded something, that just because you exist, you deserve something. And this is not going to be a message that will be well received. But hear me. Just because you're a man doesn't mean you deserve to be the leader. And just because you're a woman does not mean you deserve a soft life. You want a soft life? Act like a princess. Don't just say you are. You want to be the leader? Act like a king. Don't just say you are. And there are not enough of us out here in this space telling everybody the truth. Not with an agenda, not taking sides. I made it clear to them at the beginning of the call, and I reiterated it at this point in the conversation. I ain't on neither one of y'all's side. I'm on the side of what's right. So I'll never be accused of playing favorites unless you're just mad. Both of you don't deserve the treatment that you really want. And it leads me to number 3. I said, ma'am, sir, titles come after proof, not before the proof. You guys want the title of king and princess, but you're not acting like it. I said, and here's a very good first step you can start. Move out. I said, it makes no sense. You guys have been together for less than 2 years. You've been living together for 6 months, and both of you are immature. Why would you get a 1-year lease with one another? It makes no sense. Both of you need to understand that the title of king and the title of princess comes after the proof, after you have carried yourself as a king, after you've carried yourself as a princess. You don't just get to inherit that title when you're not acting like such. And what you both did is you decided to be together, move in together, and think, oh, because I'm a man, oh, because I'm a woman, you're going to treat me like this. You're going to give me this. And neither one of you have what? She finally opened her mouth and said, we haven't earned it. I said, exactly. I said, so why don't y'all start by getting out of the same place? You have no business living with one another. And a lot of people won't want to agree with that either. Oh, well. You have no business living with one another, and especially as immature as both of you are. They took the correction really, really well. Took it well. They decided to move out. They broke the lease, split the difference to break the lease. They've decided to still try to talk and work things out. And they are going to resume some sessions so that we can work on some things like emotional maturity and really getting into a healed masculine and feminine frame. I hope this story made sense. If it did, type church in the comments with 3 R's. And then remember, you've got 2 jobs. 1, be better today than what you were yesterday. And 2, don't forget what I told you. What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Zeb. Listen, I've been dying to make this announcement for a very long time now, and I'm pleased to say that Inspire Nation has officially launched. Yes, we finally got a Facebook and YouTube community group where we're going to have exclusive content, exclusive shorts, exclusive discussion prompts, where we're going to engage with other people literally around the world who are on the same healing journey that we're on. I need you to go find these pages right now on Facebook and YouTube. Inspire Nation, follow the page, join the group, introduce yourself, and be prepared to link up with literally thousands of people around the world who are on the same healing journey, who are looking for the same resources, and who want to also be surrounded with other like-minded individuals who are growing in the same direction as you are. I'm so excited about this because it's the beginning of some great things I can't talk about right now. Listen, you got 2 jobs. 1, be better today than what you were yesterday. And 2, don't forget what I told you.